You go back to my old neighborhood in Philadelphia, and you tell them, brother, you know it. Tell them that Steve Cardwell, a.k.a. Shorty, was going to be opening up a church service in Radcliff, Kentucky. See, it only could be God. Only God can do what he did to me. He was the only one. I couldn't do it for myself. I could not change myself. But I got into some situations, and he got me to a point that I realized that I could no longer do it on my own. He said, I'm sending you someone. See, because I remember the days of smoking and drinking. I remember the days of waking up in my car and don't even know how I got there. I remember the days when I closed the clubs down. I remember the days of going to the after hours and staying and closing that down. See, but God will take all those things. He said, I'm going to take all that stuff and I'm going to change it around. I'm going to take all those bad things that you thought and I'm going to use them for my glory. He said, I'm going to take you. Even when I didn't believe it myself, he always surrounded me with men of God. I was fortunate enough that when I first got saved, 16 years ago, he placed me under the wing of a man. Pastor John took me up under his wing. And there were some rough edges on me because I was still coming out of the streets. I was a soldier, but I was still a hood. I still had hood mentality. I remember, I was sharing this with you earlier, and I remember at a youth service or a youth meeting, and he was doing a fundraiser, and he said, we need to raise some money for a youth event. And I said, well, Pastor John, I know how to make some money. And he said, brother, no, that's not going to work in the house of God. But see, it takes men and women of God to recognize. See, he didn't come down on me like a ton of bricks. He didn't shun me. He didn't point me to the exit sign and say, brother, you got to leave this church. But what he did say was, no, let me show you how God does it. And he began taking me up under his wing. And he began teaching me things that I didn't even believe myself. He began pouring into me. And then over the years, I've also been under other men of God. But then he brought me to the house of Evangel of Radcliff. Pastor Ray. Oh, I love you, Pastor Ray. I love you too, Pastor John. The two greatest men in my life. I mean, they are the greatest men of my life. They have taken the roughness that I had. And I'm still rough, and I still take part from each one of them. I'm loud like Pastor. I'm bold like him, but I know how to be humble like Pastor John. But Pastor Ray and Pastor John both saw something in me. I remember years ago, my uncle gave me a book, the Star Book for Minister. And when he first gave it to me, I had just recently got saved, and I asked my wife, why did he give this to me? I don't need this. But he saw something in me that I didn't even see myself. Pastor John, I remember in youth service, he said, I've seen you work every area of the youth ministry, but I've never seen you preach. My first response, because I was still a new Christian, my first response was, and you won't. Come on, brother. You guys can have a seat, please. My first response was, you won't. But when my son got married, and I had been ministering at that time, and we were sharing again, and Pastor John has a way of, when he's talking to you, when he has his glasses on, he'll drop his glasses down, and I know that he's serious then. And he was looking at me. He said, "But brother, I knew that day was coming, that you would do that." And then when I got over to Evangel of Radcliff, see, sometimes you have to have the opportunity to operate in the gifts that God placed inside of you.
Right, right.
Pastor Ray saw something in me. I do like to talk.
Go ahead.
I was a recruiter for 17 years. I love talking. You know, I talk to a rock if I can. You know, I love talking. And God said, I'm going to take that and use that. And Pastor Ray gave me the opportunity one Wednesday and said, "Brother, I want you to get some scriptures. And I want you to get those scriptures together. And I want you to minister with 4 other people next week." And I did that. But when I left Pastor Ray, the first person I called was Pastor John. I said, "Pastor John, I've been asked to minister. What do I do?" See, we have it in us. We have been around ministry for so long. And I said this on Thursday, that we have so much word inside of us. We have sat so long. You got so many notes, you probably can publish your own book. They do have some sites out on the internet. You check some of the Bible sites, you can publish your own book. But you got so many notes that you can publish your own book. But God is saying now, He said, I want you to take what's inside of you. And that was one of the things that Pastor John said. Brother, you have it in you. But I'll help you get an outline on how to do some things. And I talked to another minister, and he told me, here's one of the things you don't want to do. He said, don't write it all out on the legal pad, because the only thing people are going to see is the top of your head. So now, I have little PowerPoints that I call trigger points. And I study, and I hear God as I'm studying, as I'm going through my scriptures that He's given me, and I study. I never know what I'm going to say when I get up here. I always warn my family members and tell them that when I step up here, I may not talk about you, but they're open game. My family, we're an open book. And I don't mind sharing about me and my family. Because it was nothing but God that brought us from where we were at. A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Ray was ministering on, and he was talking about take no thoughts. And I'm at that point in my life now, I don't take any thought about what's going to take place. It was almost 3 years after I retired before I realized how much I was getting on my retirement check. I take no thought. When I go to the ATM machine, I expect money to be there. I don't even ask for a receipt. I don't need it. Because I know when I go there, because of the God that I serve and the seed and things that I've laid, that, see, you can't take a farmer. You take a farmer, or maybe somebody in like Florida, a nice sunny place. Our weather's not cooperating today, but we'll take Florida. So you picture yourself and you're in Florida. Nice sunny day. All the orange growers out there, they plant trees, orange trees. And as they plant those trees, they grow. And it takes time for them to mature. And as they mature, they produce fruit. And as they produce those oranges, they harvest those oranges. And at that point, that they do the harvest, the farmer, or whatever orange growers are, they don't come back afterwards, cut down the tree, and start all over. They know that because I've planted this tree, when harvest comes again, I'm expecting more fruit. Just because I sow a seed, I'm not looking one for one. I'm not looking for one. I sow $1, I don't want $1 back. Your math may say $1 for $1, but the God that I serve, see, we've been teaching over there 1,000 times blessings. So we've been teaching about 1,000 times fold. So when I sow, I expect my harvest. And I expect, just like that farmer, when I need to go back, and that's why with my ATM and the other things, I don't have to check. When I go, it's harvest. You're looking at somebody, and I'll give you a little bit more of my background. God has taken me from when we came here from California to here 16 years ago. Right before we left California, maybe a year or two before we left, we filed bankruptcy. Again, I told you my life is open book. I have no shame. Because see, what I've been through, you can't shame me. There's nothing that you can say. Because see, I know who I serve. And see, there's nothing any man can say that can harm me. I fear no man. I only answer to him. So you can talk about me, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm driving a pickup truck today because I've been working. So when I pull up in my little sports car, or if I pull up in my little motorcycle, it's all because of God. So don't think when you see me pull up in that car, oh, he's using church funds. No, God had already blessed me with that. Motorcycle brand new that I just got in December. It's not from church funds. Matter of fact, I just love preaching. Pastor Ray, when we talked about this, my first reaction was, I'm ready to do it. I never said, is there a salary? I just want to serve God. God will always take care of me. I learned that a long time ago. God will always take care of me. And sooner or later, I'll get to my notes, but as the Holy Spirit is moving, I just got the flow. I'm sorry, notes are made to be held on to for a later date. We got so many electronics that we use. I use an iPad, iPhone, iMac at home, and whatever the notebook in the office. So those notes will hold. I got them backed up on so many systems that if one fails, I got them on another. But I'm telling you, God will take. I don't know what your situation is, but God will take. If He did it for me, God is no respecter of person. That's right. So don't look at me, focus on Him. Amen. Don't be a man pleaser. Be a God pleaser. Because see, there's nothing I can do for your salvation. I can teach you things. I can share with you. But you have to get it together with Him. You have to be able to go to Him and say, you know, God. See, I talked to Him. I was walking around in this church. I said, God, I had that same feeling when I first moved into my first house. I walk around this place, and I'm just in awe. And one day, and the reason that I'm in awe, see, some of you have been here when we were working on it. If you would have seen how this building looked, I'm sure when we first went here, I mean, it was like, ooh, ooh. It is some work that has to be done in this place. And I was like, you know, God, I work every day. You're going to have to give me some strength. Yeah. You are going to have to strengthen me. Because there's many days when I came off from work, and I'm not saying this to brag on myself or things that happened, but I'm saying how God strengthened me. Every time I came over here, I was encouraged by my brothers when we were over here working. There were some days I got here, I would leave work at 4 o'clock, 4:30, somewhere around here, and I would come straight to this building. I would have my work clothes in my truck. Come straight to the building and I would work. I would work some nights from midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and there were some nights that I told Pastor one day we left at 1 o'clock. We got off early. But I would still be back at my desk. And I'm going to tell you something. I shared this with somebody yesterday. The physical labor is a great thing. Yeah. It got me a chance to talk with my brothers, get together, we fellowship, learn some things about each other as we worked. Yeah. But I will, when I go to work tomorrow, see, I work in IT. So most of the times I'm behind the desk. I will probably go in there with happy feet tomorrow. So happy to get back to work. The physical labor is over. But the work is just getting ready to begin. And this is not work that my wife and I can do by ourselves. This is not work that Pastor DeLillian and Pastor Ray can do by ourselves. It takes a body. It takes a body to come together to do the things that God has put in our hearts to do in Radcliff, Kentucky. There are some things going on in this city. And I believe that God has leaders in it. You have gifts and callings inside of you. And God is saying, it's time for you to get up out of your seat. See, I'm going to go to the scripture in Matthew 25 where we talk about talents. See, because you have talents. And how are you using those talents? Are you using those talents that God put inside of you? Do you have the voice to sing? Are you singing for the Lord? Or are you singing for the world? Do you have the gift to play an instrument? Are you playing for God or are you playing for the world? You have gifts and talents. And my job right now is to try to stir up those gifts, bring them up to the top, and let you know that here at Evangel of Radcliff, just like Evangel in E-Town, we want to use your talents. We want you. You got a word in your belly you want to speak? You know you've been called to preach? Bring it on. We will train you. We will prepare you for what you're called to do. Because see, the happiest times that I've ever had in my life, besides when I met my beautiful wife. I told you I used to be a recruiter. I got to be smooth. But no, my beautiful, she is beautiful. My wife is definitely. And she's a strong woman of God. She had to be very strong. And here's where I start telling some more on my family. She had to be real strong. Because when we got to California, we were the party people in Philadelphia. Every party went through the Cardwell house when we lived on the naval base. Our company, my recruiting company, whenever there was a party, it was at our house. Whenever they had an extra keg of beer, it came to our house. And we partied. Till partied so much, I had one of my friends used to tear, he had this habit of pulling our curtains down when he got drunk. Always ripping our curtains down. wrong with that. They always rip their curtains down. We used to party. We used to have these annual conferences that they used to do for the recruiting command, and we would get there a day ahead of time to prepare for the party. We would come in, and you know when you roll into a hotel, and we're only there for, the conference would be a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you're gone, but we would get there on that Thursday, and we would roll up there, and you know, normally you're carrying your bag, you got your uniform, you got your clothes for that weekend. No, not us. We had to get the carts, because we had to have all of our party gear. We had to have all of our party gear, and we had to have, I'm not talking one cart, because there was another couple that used to roll with us too, so they had a cart too. And we would roll up, and then we would get on our floor, and we would immediately attack the ice machine to fill our tub with ice. I had to start getting things chilled. The party's about to start. But my wife had to be a strong woman of God, because after we left Philadelphia, it was no more than a month after we got to California, my wife did something that I didn't understand. I just couldn't believe she did this. I went to bed. I was laying in bed. All right, I'm going to bed. She was laying there. She was smoking a cigarette, and she was drinking a wine cooler. But when I got up that morning, my wife did something during the night that I didn't understand. My wife was flipping through the channels because she couldn't find something on, and she found a preacher. And my wife got saved. And I didn't understand it. My party partner is gone. And I mean, she said to me that morning, she said, I gotta find me a church. I was like, what? What do you want to do that for? She's like, you just don't understand. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to smoke anymore. She's like, I got saved. I'm like, you what? And then I was like, yeah, right. I know. You probably watched one of those guys and you did all that stuff. You know how we do. We come to church. We do all this. We raise our hands. We do all this. We do all this stuff. We know the moves. We know all that stuff. We know, oh yeah, we raise our hands. We clap. We do all those things. But down inside, we're ugly and tore up. Now, sometimes you may get past the preacher. And we may not see everything. But see, again, I told you, don't be a man pleaser, be a God pleaser. Because see, you might get some things by me. But he knows. So you can raise your hands. You can dress as fancy as you want to dress. But God sees well beyond that. He's looking down on the inside. And he's looking at the heart. And he's seeing, is the heart right? Do they have the heart right? But my wife had to be a strong woman. Because she was a new Christian. And she had me. Yeah, I heard you say devil, yeah. Yeah, I heard it. Yeah. And that devil was working on me too. Because she was a brand new Christian in a state without family. And he had me work everything that he could possibly use me to do to try to break what he had for her. But one of the things that she did as a strong woman of God, regardless of what others might have said about me, and I know it was hard for her. I shared this on Thursday. First time I ever heard somebody speak in tongues was my wife. And when she spoke in tongues, it was because I had rubbed her so wrong, she couldn't even speak English to me anymore. the only thing that came out was the Holy Spirit. She couldn't even talk to me. I mean, it was just, and again, here's the enemy working me again, even during this time. I looked at her, I said, see, I told you that church was going to make you crazy. I mean, she went through all this. Whole household up in the uproar. Kids saying, she said, I want to go to church. And she did. She left out. This was like on a Wednesday. By that Sunday, she had found the church and she hit the road and hit it running. Never looked back. Never allowed the stuff that I was doing to discourage her. Kids going crazy. Husband nuts. Now we're in California. She's getting ready for church. Well, California, 3 hours difference. She's getting ready for church. Football's on. This early in the morning, I'm already cracking them. Football. All right, I see you when you get back. Kids coming out. Dad, do we have to go to church? Mom's like, no, you have to go to church. Then it got to where, no, they don't have to go to church. It got ugly. One day she said to me, she said, Steve, I don't want you to bring any more alcohol in this house. And me being the man that I was, I said, let me remind you something, Miss Phyllis. When we moved into this house, we was living on a military installation. I said, when we moved into this house, and we went over to the housing office, and we had to sign for quarters, whose signature did they ask for? Did they ask for you to sign, or did they ask for me to sign? So therefore, I will bring as much beer in this house as I want to. That's what she was dealing with. And she got so upset, she went back and talked to her pastor. And she told her pastor on me. And I didn't care. She told her pastor. And her pastor, she thought her pastor was going to be on her side. And her pastor wasn't. He said, sister, you trying to put something on him that he doesn't even understand. You're trying to make him change to something that he doesn't even understand. He said, but here's what I'll do for you. I'll tell you how to get him delivered from that, and he won't even know it. So my wife, she said, okay, Pastor, what do you want me to do? Because she also got to the point, she said, I'm not going to buy any more beer for you. Because she used to go to the store. When she went to the store, she would pick it up for me. She said, I'm not doing it for you anymore. I'm not touching alcohol. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And the pastor corrected her. He said, no, go pick up the alcohol. Go get his six-pack. Go get his case. Go get whatever you want. But on that ride home, you take your anointed hands and you begin to lay on that beer. And you begin to pray that every time that he takes a sip of that beer, that he would begin to get sick of it. He began to get so sick that he will stop drinking that beer. See, you all have anointed hands. See, that's not the preacher that got anointed hands. You are all children of God. You all have the power inside of you. You all have the anointing inside of you. It's not just up at the pulpit. So she laid her hands on it. Trash day was on Monday. So I would get the beer. I would drink one beer and my head would pound tremendously. Terrible headache. I mean, my head would just pound. And again, stupid me. I'm sorry, kids. I know that's not a nice word, but I had to say it today. My granddaughter would be like, Grandpapa, don't say stupid. Me. Thank you, silly me. Silly me. Still didn't understand what was going on. So next week I said to my wife, don't get the Michelob. Let me try. Oh, and by the way, I took that beer every Monday. I would take the beer and I would sit it out with the trash. So when the trash man came, I said, man, I can't drink this. You can have it. And so he came to, on Monday he would come up and expecting beer because I was again silly. And I said, okay, don't do the Michelob. Do the Heinekens or something like that. And she said, okay, no problem. I'll get you the Heineken. And she would go get it for me. And smile all the time. No problem, baby, I got you. And on the ride home, I'm sure she laid those anointed hands on it again. And she began praying over that beer. Amen. And again, I would drink one beer, my hand would just pound. Yep. And again, I probably did this for 3-4 weeks. This went on. And then finally inside of me, never forget it, March 13th, 1996. 1996, March 13th, I'll never forget it. I heard this voice that said, if you don't drink the beer, your head doesn't hurt, does it? And I was like, yeah, you're right. If I don't drink the beer, my head don't hurt. Okay, we'll stop drinking beer. Come on. So when you have situations like that, see, you can't beat everybody over the head with the Bible. You take the tools that you have, the power that rests inside of you, and you begin to use what God has given you. You use the power to change. The prayer of a righteous man availeth much. You have to be prayerful. You have to be righteous too. I'm checking my watch because my wife, we've been doing this for a while, so she knows how to signal me at certain times. We wanted to go a shorter service today. And I didn't get to my notes, but I hope the things that I brought out today. And there's so much more and for wives. I know a lot of times wives or girlfriends will be the first one to come into church, and a lot of times the guy's at home. But begin using the gifts that God gave you. Begin using the things that God has placed inside of you to change. My wife didn't give up on me. She prayed for me. She oiled my side of the bed down, but I didn't even know. She slicked my party shoes up, my party clothes. I had anointed oil all through it. She probably put enough oil in there. I'm surprised I didn't slide out of the bed. Oh, food, everything. She was just working. But and one of the things I did, I began recognizing that no matter what I was putting her through, her response was still love. She still loved me. She didn't retaliate. She still loved me. With all the different things that was going on, she didn't give up. She said, my household will be saved. She stood in the gap when I wasn't there. She stood in the gap. And she didn't allow the enemy to steal her family, because that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to separate us. And I couldn't see that. But then I began to see the love that she had inside. And I began to see what she had was much greater than I ever had in my life. And I began wanting what she had. there's been a thirst that I begin having. How is she so calm through these storms? How is she able to make it through all these things that I was putting her through? Kids was putting her through. Yes, I'm pointing at you too, because you wasn't innocent either. That's my daughter over there. She wasn't innocent either. And my other daughter and my sons, they all of us, but it was a lot for a new Christian.
I wanted to stab him.
She always said that, but she never did. Never did.
I dreamed about it.
Yeah.
I ain't do it.
But she never did. But the thing was, what I saw inside of her, the light of God began shining through. And see, this is something that we have to carry. When we go to work, in your workplace, see, preaching and ministry is not always right here.
That's right.
The church is just a building. You carry Jesus around with you. So your ministry is wherever you're at. And you have to allow the light of Christ to shine through wherever you go. People at work shouldn't see you one way. People at work should not see you. You should not be the hell raiser at work. You should not be the negative person that nobody wants to be around. You should be the person that's drawing people.
Amen.
Drawing people to you. And sometimes people don't even know why. But they will come.
That's right.
It's a good way to test where you're at. Are you drawing them or are you running them away? I'm going to close. Now, I do want to make one announcement. Next, on Thursday, our service is at 10:30 on Sunday and Thursday at 7. This Thursday, we will not have service here this Thursday because it's the National Day of Prayer. And the Evangel of E-Town and Evangel of Radcliff, we have a National Day of Prayer event that we put on every year. And it draws ministers from all across the state, other states, city officials, state officials, and they all come together for one purpose, and that purpose is to pray. So Thursday we will not be here, but the following Sunday we will. And when we come back on the following Sunday, I will begin to share some of the things that we're looking to do in this house, in Radcliff. I thank you guys for your time. It's been a pleasure. I thank each and every one of you for coming out today. I pray that you have a blessed and prosperous day today.